Did you know that you are in a moment in time where you have the power to change the nation for the better, and to do so, you need only say yes? These moments are rare, and this moment, our moment, began on the morning of 26 May 2017, when 250 Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, including myself, from throughout the continent and its adjacent islands, gathered in the heart of the nation at a special place called Uluru. We had engaged in many days of passionate discussion and debate, and with an eye to the lessons from the past, we looked to the future. Our great hope was that we would reach a consensus, one collective statement that would invite Australia to right the wrongs of our colonial past. We called that statement the Uluru Statement from the Heart. To reach a consensus, we relied on our culture. We listened to each other. We respected each other's various perspectives. We practiced reciprocity. And finally, we were willing to reach a compromise amongst ourselves to agree our common goal. I'll never forget when the Uluru Statement was read for the first time on that momentous morning. You could hear a pin drop in the room. It was like a late afternoon tropical storm brewed nearby. The room was full of tension, the air thick with expectation. We listened, we waited, we heard it coming, and then it swept over us. Relief, heavy, overwhelming relief. It was as though we had waited many months for the heavens to open, and when the heavens finally parted, the rains that came forth were our tears of joy and hope. We endorsed the Uluru Statement from the Heart with standing acclamation, and we felt our ancestors standing with us. I'll recite the Uluru Statement in a moment, and I want you to listen. Listen with your heart and your mind so you may hear our clear invitation for you to walk with us to establish a constitutionally enshrined Indigenous voice to Parliament. To do this, we will be going to a referendum, and this will be your moment, Australia's moment, to use our power to say yes. Why would you say yes? Well, I would rather ask, why would you say no to such a generous invitation? Australians have everything to gain and nothing to lose by including Indigenous voices in the centre of decision-making. Indigenous people don't just have the knowledge to be able to resolve the issues that we uniquely suffer from, such as disproportionate incarceration and diseases caused by poverty and poor living conditions in our communities. But we also have the knowledge to build a more sustainable future, and importantly, to adapt and act in this climate crisis. Indigenous peoples have lived with this country in harmony for more than 60,000 years. We didn't merely possess country, we belong to country. We are country. Indigenous people developed and enjoyed one of the most advanced and successful civilizations on earth. How else could these hundreds of First Nations languages uniquely evolve on this one common land? My people live with great peace and abundance, and I don't want you to just take my word for it. You've already felt it. I have no doubt. You felt it in that moment when you first laid eyes on that special place. the green valley vista with a cool breeze caressing fields of yellow and purple wildflowers, the deep blue sea fringed by white surf and silver fish feeding by broad golden sands, that waterhole tucked into the folds of an omnipresent red rock, surrounded by a desert like an ocean of ochre, or those wetlands reflecting a brilliant orange and violet dusk as flocks of magpie geese forage at the foot of an ancient escarpment. You felt it in those moments when your breath has caught at the beauty and abundance of this great country. How could it be denied that Indigenous people have a special connection with this country? How can the injustices of dispossession and genocide and failed policies and harmful laws continue to be ignored as if these are not the cause of our torment, as if somehow Indigenous people purposely cause this torment upon ourselves? We are not an innately criminal people. We love our children, and we desperately want for them a better future. We are not seeking to introduce race into the Constitution with this referendum because we are not a different race, though we are still treated that way. We are human, like you, and we seek our rightful place in Australia's birth certificate. I hope that by now, the question you are asking yourself is not if Indigenous people should have a constitutionally enshrined voice, but instead you're asking yourself, why? Why have we not granted this fairness to Indigenous people before? Fairness. You remember perhaps when you were a child and you got in trouble for something, you got the blame for something that you did not do. Or what about the time that you were in the schoolyard and the other kids were playing a game and they excluded you? It's terrible, isn't it? When you feel voiceless and ignored. Indigenous people are merely seeking a fair go. Parliaments are always making decisions specifically about Indigenous people, and they are failing to close the gap in life expectancy, in education, employment and health outcomes. They are failing to close the gap because there is no constitutional requirement for the Parliament to hear us. It would be a fair go for Indigenous people to be able to speak to the Parliament in a transparent way before parliaments make decisions about us. It would be a fair go for Indigenous people to be able to choose representatives who are from our communities, who understand our culture, who know the solutions to our problems because they live and breathe our issues every day. Representatives who speak for Indigenous people, not for their self-interest or a political party. Look at what our children say. Children from many different backgrounds. Australian children innately understand the fair go. They ask the question too. Why have we not granted this fairness to Indigenous people before? It would be a fair go for our children, not just Indigenous children, but all of our children, to no longer be burdened by a colonial past and a constitutional ignorance to our Indigenous heritage. If you, like our children, would say yes, then this is your moment. And I want you to use your power not just to turn up on polling day at that referendum and cast your vote as a yes, but to do the work that the Indigenous people have done in this country, and in the lead up to that referendum, take other Australians by the hand and make sure they vote yes too. I'll recite the Uluru Statement from the heart now, and I hope that you'll respond in the same way that my people did, with standing acclamation and tears of joy and hope. We gathered at the 2017 National Constitutional Convention, coming from all points of the southern sky, make this statement from the heart. Our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander tribes were the first sovereign nations of the Australian continent and its adjacent islands, and possessed it under our own laws and customs. This our ancestors did according to the reckoning of our culture from the creation, according to the common law from time immemorial, and according to science more than 60,000 years ago. This sovereignty is a spiritual notion, the ancestral tie between the land or Mother Nature and the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples who were born therefrom, remain attached thereto, and must one day return thither to be united with our ancestors. This link is the basis of the ownership of the soil, or better, of sovereignty. It has never been ceded or extinguished, and it coexists with the sovereignty of the Crown. How could it be otherwise that a peoples possessed a land for 60 millennia and this sacred link should disappear from world history in merely the last 200 years? With substantive constitutional change and structural reform, we believe this ancient sovereignty can shine through as a fuller expression of Australia's nationhood. Proportionately, we are the most incarcerated people on the planet. We are not an innately criminal people. Our children are alien from their families at unprecedented rates. This cannot be because we have no love for them. And our youth languish in detention in obscene numbers. They should be our hope for the future. These dimensions of our crisis tell plainly the structural nature of our problem. This is the torment of our powerlessness. We seek constitutional reforms to empower our people and take a rightful place in our own country. When we have power over our destiny, our children will flourish, they will walk in two worlds, and their culture will be a gift to their country. We call for the establishment of a First Nations voice enshrined in the Constitution. Makarrata is the culmination of our agenda, the coming together after a struggle. It captures our aspirations for a fair and truthful relationship with the people of Australia and a better future for our children based on justice and self-determination. We seek a Makarrata Commission to supervise a process of agreement-making between governments and First Nations and truth-telling about our history. In 1967, we were counted. In 2017, we seek to be heard. We leave base camp and start our trek across this vast country. We invite you to walk with us in a movement of the Australian people for a better future. Thank you.